Hello everyone, I'm Srihita and I'm doing an internship at IBM CIO. This is my final year project demo, Order Management Chatbot. Order Management Chatbot at its core is a Watson assistant trained to deal with queries related to orders, invoices, and codes. It is integrated with a Django backend. The whole web application is Dockerized and deployed onto Cirrus, which is IBM's private cloud platform. Since the deployed application is internet facing, we can access the website with Watson Assistant with a URL. So this is the website I have created with Bootstrap. The blue chat icon is the Watson Assistant. On clicking the chat icon, a chat box pops up where the Watson Assistant greets the user. This is when a Watson Assistant session is automatically started. Let's see how a normal dialogue exchange works between the Watson Assistant and the user. Here I have asked the Watson Assistant to provide me the country of a specific code. So here the entered input is actually taken to the backend where it is forwarded to the Watson Assistant using Watson SDK. There, the Watson Assistant recognizes the intent and entities from the user input. So before that, Watson will confirm the user input and the recognized entities with the user. Here, the user can only type yes or no. If the user types something else, it will request the user to respond with yes or no. So when the positive confirmation is provided for the Watson, a specific OData URL based on the intents and entities recognized is triggered. The OData URL is appended with the appropriate filters so it can get the right data from the orders database. So this here there are no records related to that code number. So this is how the Watson responds. Suppose I want to repeat the previous query but with a different entity. I don't have to spell it out for Watson. I can simply say change the code to something else. Here, Watson is smart enough to understand that the user is talking about the previous query. So it is now confirming the previous query with the new entity. When the positive confirmation is provided, Watson will query the database with the help of OData API URL. And the data is then passed into neat English sentences for the user and is sent to the front end chat box for the user to see. So this is how a normal dialogue exchange works between the Watson assistant and the user. So in the previous query, I had asked the Watson assistant to provide the country for a code. So their code number was a necessary entity value. So what if the user does not provide that with the user input? Here I have not provided the necessary code number. Watson has a specific feature called slots there. So when a user input does not have the required entity information, which is required to answer the user, slots prompt the user to provide the necessary information explicitly. Here I have been asked to enter 10-digit code number. So when I enter a valid code number, the flow is taken back to normal and it is asking for the confirmation again from me. And when that confirmation is provided, it will give the respective data. So actually, once the code number or any entity for that matter is given to the Watson assistant, it is stored with it throughout the time length of the conversation. This is possible with the help of another feature from Watson called context variables. Context variables are stored throughout the time limit of a session. So here, if I want another detail related to that code number, I don't have to type the code number again. Suppose I can simply say ePricer ID for that code. Here, Watson will understand that I'm talking about the same code number. So the flow is again taken back to the normal and confirmation is asked for. When that confirmation is given, the OData API URL with like the right filters is triggered and it queries the data from the orders database, which is brought back to the front end in neat English sentences for the user. So this is how Watson usually responds when there is no confusion. But what if Watson does not understand what the user wants? When simply I type a code number without asking for anything, Watson does not understand how to respond. So here Watson provides the user with a set of responses or a menu of suggestions to choose from. So here it says, please input the option beside the query you require. So that means Watson will only accept responses of numbers 1 to 4. It will not accept any string response because this is a special situation where suggestions are provided. So even integer responses, it will only accept valid integer responses. That means I can only enter 1 to 4 and Watson will accept that user response and move on from this conversation. suppose I want to track the code. That means I want the details of code, all the details of the code. So when I enter that respective response, it will go back to the normal flow asking for confirmation from the user. So when that positive confirmation is given, I get all the details related to the code. So this is how disambiguation works in Watson Assistant. There is another feature in Watson Assistant called auto learning. Auto learning learns from these user choices from the Watson Assistant disambiguation. Suppose many users make the same choice of selecting option 2 from this particular menu. Watson will understand that when a user types a code number, it usually details like tracks to wanting details of the whole code. So it will learn by itself and surface relevant responses in the future. So maybe when users select option number 2 for enough times, and when next time the user types code with a valid code number, it will directly jump to tracking a code with code number instead of providing a huge menu of options to select from. So this is one such feature of Watson Assistant. This is how Watson responds when a relevant query is typed by the user. But what if the user types something irrelevant and not related to orders, quotes, or invoices? Watson can detect the irrelevant queries, and it has a standard response, which is how it responds for every irrelevant query typed by the user. So as explained earlier, context variables are stored throughout the session time limit. So when the session expires, it is designed in such a way that if the user types something in the chat box after the session is expired, it will inform the user that the session has been expired and that Watson is going to start again. So when Watson starts again, all the previous remembered information and variables stored in the context variables is going to be forgotten. And the dialogue conversation is going to start freshly again with the user. So now the time limit of the session has passed. Let's see how the Watson responds when the user tries to query it. Here you can see that the Watson is responding that the chat session has been inactive and that a new session is being started. And since it's greeting again, it indicates that all the previous information which the user has provided it, like the context variables or anything like that, is forgotten and Watson is starting again with the user. So this has been the internship project demo of the project order management chatbot. Thank you.